The million dollar question: how do entrepreneurs transition from self-employed to owning a business that turns a profit? My name is Chris Waters, and this podcast has the million dollar answer. Welcome to CEO Secrets. Hey guys, it's Chris Waters. Welcome to CEO Secrets. I have an extraordinary CEO upon us today. Greg Harrelson, the broker owner of Century 21's group out of Myrtle Beach. His group is called the Harrelson Group.
It is the Harrelson Group. Yep, out of
Harrelson Group with Century 21. Guys, if you don't know of Greg yet, well, you can thank me later because this guy is literally one of the juggernauts and is leaving a massive legacy in the real estate brokerage space. And so I'm incredibly excited and grateful to have Greg on the podcast today. Greg, welcome to CEO Secrets.
Hey man, I appreciate it. And when you reached out to me and I saw who it was reaching out to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. So I was looking forward to this one. I know we're gonna have a good time.
Sweet, man. Well, why don't you tell everybody kind of what your ecosystem looks like? Because not only are you guys selling thousands of homes, but you've got a lot of other things going on in your world. Kind of enlighten us on what does the world of Greg Harrelson look like?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for, over 20 years now. And, I started off as a solo agent, immediately built a team early on, 20 years ago. And eventually I just decided to, kind of like go down this path of like a hybrid model, which is, people are wondering, am I a brokerage or am I a team? Like there's a lot of people that have confusion as to where do I fall? And that confusion, by the way, is exactly how I designed it. And not designing for the purpose of confusing people, but that tells me that I am a blend between a team type of concept, but I am the owner of the offices. So right now I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I have a few offices here, actually 3 different office locations, and it kind of touches on the 3 points of my marketplace geographically. I also have expanded into Charleston, South Carolina. And so I have a brokerage in Charleston, South Carolina, have been there for about 5 years. And then about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I acquired and expanded to Columbia, South Carolina. So between Charleston, Columbia, and here, got around 205 people in my operations as agents. And we did right around 3,800 closings last year, and we're pacing about the same this year. It doesn't look like we're going to have the growth that I would like, but at the same token, we are dealing with some crazy stuff going on in this country. So to be about the same as the previous year with all this going on is a victory. So
you're getting
that's who I am.
You're getting close to eclipsing 4,000 transactions.
Yeah, it is. And it's almost like there's this like turbulence when you get there. It's like, now I know when I bust through that line, then it's going to be like, okay, whoo, it's going to get there. But it's almost like the closer you get to that line, the more turbulence and resistance. And it's like that energy is hard to bust through it, but I'm going to get there. There's no question. That's beyond a doubt.
What are your big value propositions for agents that get agents to come on board and join you?
The way I look at it is this. I don't look at myself as a real estate company. I really look at myself as a coaching company. Now, I have been saying that for years, and I know that now it's the popular thing to say, but I've been saying that for years, for well over 10 years, that one of my talents is I know how to develop talent. I know how to create top producers. So because I call myself a coaching company, I have really set the entire operations, I've set it up to develop and support the real estate professional who wants to excel, to go to the next level, not to be average, to be well above 3, 4, 5 times average and even more. And so the real value that I believe I bring to the table is the fact that I understand how to get somebody from 0 to 100. I can do that. I got multiple 100 deal producers, 200 deal producers. Yeah, I've got that. And these people didn't have license before I met them. So I have that ability to take them there. A lot of agents will say they started at my company because they knew I could help them get to a certain level with production, but what they didn't realize is I was going to teach them how to be a true entrepreneur, help them start getting into investing, and also making sure that they don't have to work more than 40 hours to do 100 deals, because that's just nonsense. That's just people not working efficiently.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think something else big you do is you help a lot with generating opportunities, booking appointments for folks, and inside sales team. And you have lots of W-2 salary folks that support those agents as well.
Yes, we do. We have good staff. So I looked at it years ago. I looked and said, okay, people are always asking, well, what's the value of a brokerage? And it's like, wow, that's a good question. So let me just look at it. And then I changed the question to, well, what do agents value? And then if you just follow the money, follow agents' money, where does it go? Agents spend money on leads. Okay, I need to be a lead company. Agents spend money on coaching. Guess I need to be a coaching company. Agents spend money on marketing. Guess I have to have a marketing company, or at least a marketing department, to take care of all that. And then agents spend money on transaction management. So if you look at, those are the 4 places that agents are spending their money. So what I did is made sure that I actually had those departments to support the agents, so the agents never had to spend money. They actually got that as a benefit, so they don't have all that outgoing expense, and they don't have all that distraction of having to try to figure it out. So we have a lot of support with those, for those agents.
So at the core, it's coaching, but you also offer all the marketing, lead generation, ops people.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, graphic designers on staff, closing coordinators, listing coordinators. That's just all part of the puzzle.
Well, so let me ask you something. Century 21, who you're a part of, it seems like they've done a lot recently to try to, revitalize their image, if you will, logos and things of that nature. You could go independent of Century 21. What has kept you with Century 21?
So I believe in brands. I do believe in brands, and I think brands have a place. I don't think brands are going to necessarily go away, whether it's Century 21, Caldwell Banker, Keller Williams. There's Berkshire Hathaway. There's some iconic brands out there in our real estate space, and I actually believe that there's a place for them. And I think what has to happen is you've got to leverage that brand. So for us, like for Century 21, our brand, in my local market, if you take all the Century 21 affiliated offices and you look at the market share, that's a huge market share. So I can kind of speak in not what the Harrelson group does, but if I need to, I can speak as to the domination that Century 21 has. I can kind of use the leverage the power of the overall brand in order to go ahead and position ourselves as an authority. In addition to that, the amount of referrals that we get from the brand, from people all over the country. And you can imagine in Myrtle Beach, a lot of people are coming in and out of Myrtle Beach. It's not, our tourism is our industry. So there's a lot of referrals to be had. And so, I get a lot of referrals, and the company gets a lot of referrals from our affiliation.
So when you go and buy like a Century 21 franchise, they have an operations manual, and it seems like a lot of the operating manuals for these franchises you can buy, for example, Century 21, Sotheby's, et cetera, their business model is, and what the operating manual says is to really, hone in on recruiting. And then the franchisor offers a lot of, I don't want to say shiny objects, but they offer a lot of things to try to help you attract agents. And it seems like over the last decade, the playbook that these franchisors are providing is becoming slightly dated, to say the least, because we're seeing this huge uproar in teams and teams expanding across the U.S. Where do you think the future holds for a company like Realogy, which owns Century 21 and several of these ERA? They bought Barbara Corcoran's company. Their stocks struggling, like Realogy stocks struggling. And a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen to Realogy and the brands underneath it. What's your take and opinion on all that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wish I had a crystal ball, right? We never know. But if you just take Realogy stock and you actually look at their balance sheet, they're like one of the only companies in the real estate world that's really making a profit. And so there's other companies out there that we know that their stock is going crazy, and they're really not making much money. So there's a lot of buzz around new companies, the newness, the word technology. So like anything new in tech, then it doesn't have to make any money. All of a sudden, you'll just see this amazing boost in their stock price. So you got to really, I've been around long enough, and hopefully I'm finally maturing, and I still got a lot of maturing to do. But I've been around long enough to realize that anything that's going on between now and 5 years ago, if we actually think that a hot market determines the trend of the future of the industry, we're wrong. What we're dealing with right now is a tailwind in the economy. We're dealing with a tailwind where people, like, sometimes I'll have real estate agents tell me, oh my God, I'm having my best year ever. I'm up by X amount of percent, and they saying it as if they finally figured it out. But then I ask them, I'm just kind of curious, how much is your market up? Well, my market is up 20%. And how much did you say you were up? I'm up 20%. So is it really you, or is it really the market? So there's a lot of things that's confusing out here right now. When the market is hot as it is, everyone thinks they're the cause of their success. Now, I'm not trying to take away one's hard work and the fact that people are, can be successful in these times, but a lot of it is fueled by the market itself. So what I think we really have to figure out is, what does the landscape of the industry look like? iBuyer programs, for instance, they've already shifted. They came out, well, they make fair offers. Are they still making those same offers? They're still in the business of iBuying, but how they're doing it's different. How is Realogy going to actually grow in the future is going to be totally different than they're growing now. Keller Williams, the same thing. Exit, they're just really taking it off. When I talk about stock prices, look at their stock price. But who knows what's really going to happen when we go through the first recession. So one thing I can say about some of the older brands, they've been through these recessions. Most of the new stuff that everyone's excited about, they've never been through a recession. Now, I'm not predicting a recession's coming. I'm just saying, until I see these things pass through a recession, I kind of like keep doing the same thing. Keep moving forward, and don't jump on those bandwagons too fast until they've proven that they can actually withstand a downturn. And that's going to be the key.
If you did have a crystal ball, when do you see a shift occurring?
Oh, man, you're really asking me some questions. I can tell you what I'm looking for, Chris. I'm looking to see what the impact is going to be with all this forbearance. And, we know that default ratios are going up. It might be kind of bouncing up and down right now. I don't know if it's still increasing because it went really high with forbearance. And then I think it kind of pulled back, and people are sitting here saying, well, gosh, the forbearance are going down. Well, I think the decrease in the amount of forbearances that are out there is really, now it's normalizing, because a lot of people that didn't need forbearance just did forbearance just because it was an option. And then they realized they didn't need to do that option. So they've reversed out of it. And now we're seeing what real numbers are. But the key is what's the default ratio going to be? I have the tendency to believe that there's some risk that default ratios are going to be high, that we could see a tremendous amount of short sales and maybe less foreclosures than I would have originally imagined. But it'll only be because I think the banks are not going to do what they did last time, and they're not going to procrastinate and wait for the next month. They're actually going to take action and try to clean things up quickly. And if they do that, we may see some foreclosures and some short sales in the next year. If that happens, then we could see a little bit of a dip. Now, I don't know if it's going to crash, but I can tell you right now, I'm preparing for a softer market. So I'm not waiting to see it. I'm preparing for it now.
What's the impact of Biden versus Trump in the real estate sector?
Well, 50% of the people are going to say it's going to be a positive. If Trump wins, 50% are going to say it's a positive. If Biden wins, 50% are going to say it's going to be a negative Biden wins, and 50% say it's going to be a negative Trump wins. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Got it. So no opinion. You know what's interesting is
I'm not going there. But what I can tell you is this: in either scenario, there's going to be a sense of uncertainty. And when uncertainty exists in the marketplace or in our minds, we tend to pull back and protect ourselves. I do believe no matter what happens, uncertainty is inevitable. And I think uncertainty causes some negativity when it comes to, the economic situation.
I'd like to say real estate agents, if anything ever happened to the real estate agent or real estate broker population, that they'd be well positioned to be in the political environment because they're so action oriented.
Uh,
But the thing is like as agents and brokers, you have to be agnostic because you work with so many different types of people. So I appreciate where you're coming from. You've got this massive real estate business. I know you're investing in other things. Like, what else are you involved in? Like, you've got something really exciting on the tech side going on to help with agents in
yeah.
terms of like marketing and automating the marketing component. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Obviously, I buy as much real estate as I can. I'm in the middle of buying 2 more properties right now as we speak. So I'm constantly buying. I tend to like to hold a lot of properties as much as I can, but if they're flip opportunities, sometimes I'll flip out of them. So I'm doing that. There's so many people that are making investments. We've got one of my partners created a tech stack called Contact Junkie, which has really solved a huge problem. I think there's so much attention being put on the conversion ratio of contact to contract conversion. And I understand, right? You make X amount of contacts, or you get so many leads, you get 100 leads. What's your conversion rate to contracts? Let's say it's 3%, 4%, whatever your number is. And that's fine and dandy. And everybody's focusing on that. And the way that you improve your conversion a lot of times requires you to improve your skills, to level up your skills. So if your skills are higher, your conversion is going to be higher. Well, we studied this so much and we realized that that wasn't where our problem was. We weren't losing, of course, we can always be better, but our biggest problem was not in the person we contacted to contracted, it was the person that we captured to contacted. So right now, it's so easy to generate leads because we can just buy them. Well, what ends up happening, we can generate so many leads. We generate 100 leads, but out of those 100, even if we're good at speed to lead and auto responders and things like that, if we generate 100, we're only talking to 18 to 20 of them. So the conversion ratio from capture to contact is about 18 to 20%. So what we did is we created a Contact Junkie, which really assists them to do short-term, very aggressive nurturing. So as when we get an online lead, if we make a call and we don't get them on the phone, we put them into Contact Junkie, run a campaign on them, and we'll make 7 to 10 more attempts in the next 24 hours to reach them. And so we'll take our conversion from 18 to 20% to 60 and 70%. Now, instead of talking to 2 out of 10, we're talking to maybe 7 out of 10. So if our skill stays the same, our expense is the same, our skill is the same, but we just had a 300% increase in the number of people that we talk to, guess what's going to happen to our bottom line? We're going to actually make more money. And so that's what Contact Junkie is. So, that was built to solve an internal problem because I do generate so many leads, thousands of leads every month. I probably generate, realistically, without exaggerating, 6,000 leads a month, somewhere in that range. So you can imagine with that many leads, this is a significant conversation because there's a lot of lossage in that. This automated the ISA process, so I didn't have to deal with hiring ISAs or at least hiring too many ISAs and training and all that. It cut that cost way down, and the technology can do more than they can do. So that's the main one that we've put out on the market, and it's worked really well.
You're using Infusionsoft as a CRM, right?
Yeah, well, I use Real Geeks as my CRM, but I've got Infusionsoft on the back end to actually do some intelligent dripping on my databases. So I've got very large databases, and I'm using Infusionsoft on the back end to really hone in and nurture. I call that my identification platform, which is I'm running campaigns on them, but then through the process, I'm watching their click patterns. And if they trigger certain click patterns, then it'll bubble up and say, hey, this person's highly probable to do something, go ahead and call them. So we've got all of our databases running those type of smart campaigns at all times.
So you mentioned Contact Junkie being able to, I assume, text people, drop voicemails, email. In the backend of Infusionsoft, can't you do that also? Like backend of Infusionsoft, build out automated texting and email drops?
Yes, you can, but then what you have to add add-ons. Like you have to go. It's kind of like you get Infusionsoft, and then you have to go get another texting application that connects with it. And then you have to get this voice application that connects with it. And it was just so many different things that you had to connect and do. So it wasn't originally built, I guess, all in one. So that's why we built out Contact Junkie. Now, Infusionsoft, again, I'm using that for much more longer database touch type of process. Contact Junkie is only one thing. It's if instead of buying 100 leads and talking to 20, I want to buy 100 leads and talk to 70. And that's what Contact Junkie's sole function is, to make sure that happens. Or for instance, there's a lot of people on here that probably use HomeLight. Okay, well, HomeLight's going to give you a listing lead. Well, guess what? HomeLight gave that listing lead to 5 or 6 more people. So it's going to be who's going to get to it first. Well, if I get a HomeLight lead and I don't get them on the phone, I'm putting them in Contact Junkie. I'll make 10 attempts that same day through automation on that HomeLight lead. The other realtor that's getting that HomeLight lead in my town is going to call them probably immediately, not going to get them on the phone. And then they'll go on an appointment, and then they'll go eat lunch, and then they'll call them again, and then they'll wait for them to call them back tomorrow. That is, whoa, no way you're going to be able to compete if I can reach them 10 times through automation.
Let me ask you something. You touched on something a minute ago about buying real estate. You're always buying real estate. Is there a specific asset class within real estate you're buying, a specific type of profile of property? What does that look like? Are you doing Airbnbs? Like what kind of, are you buying stuff only if it's below market value? Like what are your, tell me what your investment thesis is.
Yeah, so my first rule is if I remember I own it, I shouldn't own it. If I remember I own it, I shouldn't own it. Okay, now what I mean by that is like an Airbnb thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying I shouldn't. If the Airbnb, if I own one of those properties and my model is going to be Airbnb, guess what I'm going to have to be damn thinking about? Is there any rentals? What's the booking? What's the calendar and all that? It's going to occupy too much space in my mind, and it's going to distract me. Could the return be good? No, it can't be good, because in order to really actually determine what the return is, I got to not only calculate the return on that actual investment, but then I got to factor in the cost of the distraction to manage that investment. And then when I factor that in and the cost of my time, there's no way it's going to be profitable. Now, most people are not going to think that way. I think the same way with stock markets. If I remember what stocks I own, I probably shouldn't own them, because the way that I buy, when I'm buying it, I'm okay with owning it for life. So then that's my first criteria. I like to buy boring stuff. Boring stuff to me, single family homes. Okay. Now, I love multifamily. There's a tremendous amount of tax benefits to owning multifamily. You've got your bonus depreciation, your accelerated, or your segregated depreciation, I think is what it's called, where, we can accelerate the depreciation in year 1, and then it even gets year 2 and year 3. Those things are fantastic, but the prices are so inflated on multifamilies. I decided I'm just going to chill out. I feel like a lot of the inexperienced money seems to be outbidding me on multifamilies right now. So I'm going to let them win this battle. I'll just go pick them up when the market dives in a couple years. I can be patient. I'll just go pick them up and I'll win the war later. But I'm really multifamily, single family for the most part, very boring, long-term rentals. And when I say, if I remember that I own it, I shouldn't own it, I really mean that. I mean, my wife even said to me the other day, hey, what's going on with that one property? I'm like, which one are you talking about? And I had forgotten I owned it. That thing's had a tenant in there for so many years, I forgot I owned the damn thing.
Let me ask you a quick question. So there was a moratorium put on a lot of cities and counties across the United States on the eviction process for tenants. And so there could be a lot of pressure on owners of multifamily properties if they don't have the cash reserves. So I'd like to, think maybe there's an opportunity in multifamily to come. But on the flip side, the interesting thing is you've got 30 million people that are unemployed now. And, for people that are living in a home and they can't afford it and they have to sell that house, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
So there's demand for multifamily. And so I keep asking myself, it feels like we're at a ceiling from an asset price perspective, but with the amount of money the Fed's printing, that the fact that they've announced they're not going to lower interest rates, it seems like, the inflationary period of asset prices over the past decade we've experienced, it seems like that's just going to continue on for at least another 10 years. Do you
It,
agree?
it,
Just
it,
what's your
yeah,
take
I
on
mean,
that?
I totally see your perspective, and I have I have no rebuttal to that. I mean, you may be right. I mean, I talk to my financial advisor quite often, and my money manager, and one of the things that I was just sharing with him is like, man, for the last 5 years, fundamentals don't matter. Like it just seems like people don't look at the fundamentals anymore, and I have to believe that at some point in the next 10 years, fundamentals will matter again. And so we all have different personalities when it comes to investing. My personality is more geared to I'm okay missing the top of the market as long as I also miss the bottom of the market. So I'm okay playing that mid market, that kind of middle of the road type of thing. That's the boring side of me, right? And so, I'm okay with having money sitting on the sidelines. It's not burning in my pocket so hot that I need to go spend it. And if it's not making sense, then it just doesn't make sense. I'm still a fundamental guy. It doesn't seem to like be trading on the fundamentals right now, so I'm just not going to trade it. And if I miss it, then that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
There's two things I want to remember to ask you. One is, as you've expanded your real estate business and open up in other markets, you've had to find key leaders to run those branches. So one thing I like you to shed some light on is like, what does that recruiting and selection process look like for key leaders? And then the second thing I'd like you to shed some light on is, you're at the top of the game, like almost, anybody that has been in the industry long enough, they know who you are. Like, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal at this point? I mean, you're at the pinnacle of all these, lists of being the top, broker, owner, franchise operator within Search 21. What's the next big, hairy, audacious goal for you? So leadership, recruiting and selection, and then the BHAG, Jim Collins BHAG.
Yeah. So on leadership, there's two paths for me. Number one, I'm not going to expand into another operation unless one of these two things exist. Somebody that I've already mentored to be a leader that's already in my operations wants to go to that area. I believe I've always got to be developing leaders. And somebody could say, well, what does it take to develop a leader? Just be a good leader, be an example. Like the best book really on leadership, it really only needs probably like one page. And that is, if you will just be an example of a great leader, then you will develop great leaders. You don't have to try that hard. The hardest thing about, developing leaders is actually being a good example, because a lot of people want to tell people, this is how you need to lead, and this is how you need to lead. And this is what you need to tell those people, the other agents, to do. But then that person looks at you and you don't have those habits. And so there's a conflict right there. There's such a conflict in so many people that are trying to develop leaders. So number one, I got to be a good leader within my own operations. And if I'm a good example, then other leaders are just going to kind of like appear. And so what I'm looking for is I'm looking for opportunities where I can take that leader and hopefully they have a place they want to go. Maybe they want to go to Charleston, South Carolina. That's how I got to Charleston. They wanted to go to Charleston, South Carolina. It's somebody that I already took from 0 to well over 100 transactions, was with me for 10 years. Boom, transplanted him into a leadership role. We went and opened up and expanded there. So I didn't have to go recruit it. I'm constantly building it. I'm incubating it. The other thing is in Colombia, for example, I didn't have necessarily somebody that wanted to go there, but an acquisition came my way. I got an opportunity and I made my decision on that company based on whether or not I felt the leadership was congruent with what I stood for in my other operations. And it just happened to be, I bought leadership. I didn't buy the company, I bought the leadership. So if they didn't have good leadership already in place that I felt like I could work with, and I spent a lot of time with them before I did the deal. If I didn't feel like I was buying into good leadership, I would have never done the deal. I'm not at this stage interested in going and doing a deal and then having to go figure out how to bring leadership in. That's going to cost me way too much money and too much time. I'm buying leadership and then we'll build a company around it. Or I'm building leadership in my current ecosystem, and will transplant it and build a company.
Cool.
That's how I'm doing that.
So that's a big nugget you just shared about developing systems within your organization to level up talent and help cast a big enough vision so they know that there's opportunities beyond just their position. So that's a great nugget, great little secret to share.
Agent to entrepreneur. My job is bring agents into the business, then coach agents to be top producers, and mentor them to become entrepreneurs. And once they become entrepreneurs, then give them opportunities to be a partner.
Cool. Well, talk to me about the BHAG. Where do you go from where you are at now? I mean, being at the top of the game, like, where's your head at?
I tell you where my head's at, and it's, I guess sometimes I look at myself and I'm just like, I feel like I'm so simple when it comes to what I want and what I need to have. Like, I don't really care too much about houses and cars and, material things like that. Not that I enjoy them, but I just don't really care about them. It's not that big of a deal. I care more about going and playing tennis this afternoon than I do buying a new car. The reality is this, and this is about as authentic as I can be. What lights my fire is seeing those agents in my operation reaching goals that they never believed that they could reach. Like, my goal is to create 30 millionaires out of my office. That like fires me up. Now, in order to do that, what's going to happen is some of them are going to level up to be entrepreneurs, and I'm going to have new business opportunities because of that. And so I don't know what it was, but it was Tony DeCello was just one of my dearest, people in my life. But of course, he was my coach for years when I was being coached by the Mike Ferry organization. He was my main coach, and then went on to coach all the MAPS people and whatnot. But there was a year where I had a little team, and we were doing maybe 350, 400 transactions a year. I know, I can't remember what year it is, but I hit 316 transactions 2 years in a row. And it's like the only time that I like, first of all, hitting that exact number is weird. I mean, I don't know how that happens, but I did. So I plateaued at least those 2 years. And he and I were talking about it. And one thing that I think he figured out, or we figured out together, is that when we set goals that revolved around money, I got uninterested. But when we set goals on how many families I could help in a given year, then it was unlimited. For some reason, the way I was programmed, probably because as a family with my parents, we didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't grow up with money. Probably felt more uncomfortable around money and more comfortable without money. I mean, just because of my upbringing, right? So there was a point where the money was becoming pretty good. And I think subconsciously I realized that it really didn't matter if I made more or not. Not because I was financially already set, years and years ago. It's just because that wasn't how I was programmed. But what I was programmed to do is I was programmed to serve by my parents. They're big givers.
What do your parents do? What do they do for a living? What's their backgrounds?
So what my mom just, she managed the house. But my dad got into real estate late in his, later years. But my dad just worked for the Department of Social Services for just about all my life until maybe junior year in high school. And then he just said, I'm just going to go into real estate. And then, of course, I got into real estate with him, for a couple years. And then we started building what we built. So today, I'm still the same way. Like, I don't have a financial goal. I really do not have. You'll find nowhere in a business plan where you'll see that I have a dollar number that I have as a goal. But what you will see is you'll see all kinds of different numbers, like number of families we're going to serve, the average per person production that's going to be within the company, the average income within the company, how many people I have doing 100 deals, how many people I have doing 50 deals. Like, I play all these goals that is all about my people winning. Because we know that if my people are winning within my operation, then I still win. It's just I don't put the focus on what I'm trying to obtain. I'm putting the focus on what they're trying to obtain. So when people ask me, what's that big goal? Man, it's to make a shit ton of money, help a lot of people make a lot of money, but more importantly, make sure that I'm playing tennis in the afternoons, I'm at every single practice and living just the dream life. And that's really what I'm up to.
Greg, sorry, it's very impromptu. I'm just curious. How old are you, Greg?
50. I'm 50. I just turned 50 this year.
So I feel like, you're the type of person that could go build an organization like Gary Keller of Keller Williams, right? And
Sure.
have 150,000 plus agents, if you wanted to. Is that within your aspirations, or you've achieved the financial point of like where you want to go, and now like what you place as a higher priority is more of the lifestyle stuff, tennis, family, things of that nature, and that's above sacrificing that to go build like a Keller Williams, for example.
Yeah, so I've had some interesting opportunities in my career, and I looked at them, and man, were they sexy. But then here's what it all came down to. I asked myself, who will I become if I chase this dream? Who will I become if I chase this dream? People have said, Greg, why don't you start coaching companies? Well, you could be the next blah, blah, blah coaching company. And I'm like, yeah, I grew up in coaching companies my entire career. And all I saw was travel, nights in hotels, divorce, and then another divorce and another divorce. And it's like, you know what? I don't know that I would become that or not, but it seems like everyone that gets into that seems to have a lot of challenges. And that's not who I want to become. And so that's what I'm always asking myself. And I mean, gosh, would I love to do something as big as what Gary Keller did? I mean, listen, he's the man. I'm not gonna, that would be a dream. But what am I willing to sacrifice to get it? Not sure. Not sure that I'm willing to sacrifice, and not saying that he sacrificed anything. I really don't know what he did or didn't, but of course he had to sacrifice something. But I'm kind of at that stage right now that if I had somebody tell me, hey, Greg, let's go and build this, would I be interested? Absolutely. But what I'm not interested in is I'm not interested in going in it on my own and having to deal with just me trying to build this and spending the next 20 years getting it to where it needs to go. So I'm more interested in looking at opportunities with people through collaborative efforts than I am trying to going out there solo and trying to be the next best franchise.
You know this from coaching, like about the importance of staying uncomfortable so you're growing. Yeah. How do you stay uncomfortable at your stage of success so that you can keep growing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hang out with people, that are doing cool things and challenging each other. But, right now it's September something, and in November, in 2 months, I'm going to run an Ironman. That's uncomfortable.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable. This body does not belong on an Ironman course. That's uncomfortable. So I'm sitting here with the CEO of Century 21, Mike Meadler, another good friend, operator named Adam Oberski out of Michigan, with Century 21 operator. And we're sitting there and we're watching this guy named Iron Cowboy on stage. If you haven't seen Iron Cowboy on Netflix, go check it out. The guy he did like 50 Ironmans, 50 days straight, an Ironman a day for like 50 days straight. Like, it's an incredible story. So the guy, we're watching him, speak live. And I looked at my friend, Adam, and I said, let's do it, dude. What? Let's run an Ironman. All right. And then I went to the CEO, Mike, dude, we're going to do an Ironman. You want to do it? Sure. And then I said, okay, here's the deal. Whoever doesn't start has to pay $5,000. So we didn't say if you had to finish, but if you don't start, you have to pay $5,000. If you do not start the race, it costs you $5,000. Now, what we know is starting's the hardest part. I mean, we're grinders. Like, I mean, I'm going to finish. I don't know what condition I'm going to finish. I don't know if I'll be willed, but I won't stop until I can't go any further, but I will start.
Are you doing a full Ironman, like the marathon and 100-mile bike ride and 2-mile swim?
Yeah.
Wow, that's intense.
And so those are the things that I'm doing. Before it was, I had never, maybe 5 years ago, I had never been above maybe 12,000 feet in elevation, like maybe a ski resort in Colorado. And then next thing you know, we're going to Africa to climb Kilimanjaro at 19,000 feet, and Mexico on glaciated mountains at 18,000 feet. And I'm not a mountain climber.
Why was that a big deal for you? Are you uncomfortable at heights?
No, it's not as heights. It's just I have no experience with 7 days of hiking all day, going from 7,000 to 19,000 feet in elevation, and when the first time I was challenged, or I wasn't challenged, somebody says, you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, sounds cool. I'll get out of my box. I'll get uncomfortable. Well, I went to Mexico. I'm on a glacier. I'm probably 16 to 17,000 feet up, probably 16,000 feet up. And I start getting altitude sickness. I told my climbing team that I was going to unhook from the rope and walk down. There's no such thing at 16,000 feet at a grade like this on a glacier. There's no such thing as unhooking and walking down. That would be complete death. I don't even remember saying it. So that tells you my state of mind and the level of altitude sickness I had. And so then that was my first attempt to climb any mountain. So instead of quitting, I hired a coach, and I said, I'd be damn, I'm going to do this. I hired a coach, went to climb another mountain, failed again. Continued to figure this thing out, bought an altitude tent where I slept in a tent for a month in my master bedroom. Wife was real happy with that. So I could simulate being at 18,000 feet, went to Africa and summited at 19,000 feet. So I failed at 16,000. I failed at 15,000, succeeded at 19,000.
That's awesome, man.
That's me
That's
being
awesome.
uncomfortable.
Do you have a coach now you work with? Do you have somebody that you're paying for coaching?
Not right this second. I'm still involved with Mike Ferry, and I follow a lot of them. But quite frankly, I mean, right now I'm following everybody. I listen to everybody, but I don't have a personal coach right now at this moment. Probably will in the next 6 months, but I'm just in a little bit of a gap right now without a personal coach. My personal coach is Stu Middleman right now, which is Google the guy. You'll see he owns all these. Has held world records and still owns a few world records in endurance sports. So he's out in the desert in California, and anytime I do something stupid like an Ironman when I shouldn't, I call him up and say, okay, here's our next venture. And so that's my only coach right now, is coaching me how to get through this Ironman.
Yeah, what are you doing to prep for an Ironman? You're not in a tent in your master bedroom, so what are you doing?
No, I'm not. It's a lot of swimming, biking, and running.
Wow, that's great. You and I have a mutual friend, Tim Heil, who also, did an Ironman, and
yeah,
he ended up in the hospital after he completed it. Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't. But
no, he literally was in the hospital for a week, and he had to have some kind of surgery done. I don't remember what happened to him, but he trained really intensely for it, and got in really, really good shape. Was very disciplined. And when I first met Tim, I think he weighed about 270 pounds. And that wasn't, 270 pounds of muscle. That was 270 pounds of fried food from fast food joints.
Yeah.
So anyways.
I just dropped 20 myself. So I just dropped 20, in the last couple of months. And so, and I'll probably drop another 10. And part of it's deliberate, and then part of it is just the sheer amount of volume of working out I'm doing.
I want to ask you one final thing before we sign out of this episode, and it might be slightly controversial, but I have to get a very non-politically correct answer from you, so I'm going to work really hard to get you to spit this out. Of all the newcomers in the real estate space, if you had a crystal ball again, which one do you see ultimately ending up failing or filing bankruptcy or shutting down in the years to come?
Are you talking about more tech companies, or like the new brands like the Compasses and the Exits? Well, I mean, Exits not new, but is that?
Well, essentially across the real estate spectrum of technology, brokerage. If you had a big, bold prediction of like somebody that we wouldn't expect that ends up failing and shutting down, who would that be?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think what we're going to see is a lot of consolidation. I think that's what we're going to see. So like, I can't think of one that I would say I think will shut down because they just have a poor concept. Like, like all the iBuyers, maybe I didn't like it when it first came out. It's a concept that has a value. The whole Zillow BS that everyone's complaining about Zillow, and they first started with, everyone's got everything to say about Zillow. The Zestimates stink. Well, the Zestimates don't stink. They're not as inaccurate as real estate agents. Agents are more inaccurate than the damn Zestimates. I mean, all you have to do is look at the original list price to final sales price, and you look at that percentage, because everyone's going to say, oh, no, it's 98% in my market. No, it's not. That's from the last list price. That's not the original list price when somebody else listed it 2 years ago, and then it got reduced and reduced, and then you took it, got reduced and reduced, and then someone else took it, got it reduced, and then it sold for like 98%. The original list price, it was probably off 18%. Zestimates are not off that much on average. So, no matter what the complaints are, I really actually think I don't see a concept that's not going to survive. What I would say is I just think that there'll be a lot of consolidation. And then I think the bigger companies, whether it be the Realogies, the KWs, the big ones, the Berkshire, I think they start maybe acquiring.
Who do you think ends up getting swallowed first?
I don't think it'll be Zillow. I think it'll be most of the iBuyer programs, I think, will get swallowed at some level.
What about Compass?
I mean, if for entertainment value, I would think that Compass is probably going to continue to try to build, go IPO, and then it'll be insignificant for those that are building it. Once they go IPO, it doesn't really matter what happens in the future. But will somebody take them? Yeah, I mean, I could see some crazy stuff happening. I could see Compass actually going in and trying to buy a Zillow. That might not make sense economically, but I could see some crazy consolidations like that going on. And at the end of the day, I think the playing field is going to be about as even as it is right now. I think you're going to have the Realogies. I think you have the KWs. I think the Remaxes. I think all those brands are going to stand the test of time. I think Compass will end up, standing the test of time, whether or not they end up taking on somebody really big, or whether somebody really big takes them on. My prediction would be something like that would happen.
Cool. Well, what's the next event I'm going to see you at?
Well,
live event.
Next one that's put on, I will go to because I just want to go. I need an excuse to get out there. Well, maybe I'll see you at the end. What's going to be out there?
If they do the Inman event in New York, maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I hope these things do get back on. I really do. I'm actually going to see John Maxwell next week in Columbia, South Carolina, at the college. And I'm surprised that he's going to be there, but somebody told me and they gave me a ticket. So I'm going to drive up there and watch him. And I think he's talking about leadership. I think he's a fantastic leader. If people have not spent time with John Maxwell's content, you need to. And there's so much of it out there in the world. He's a great leader.
Greg, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. You've been a fantastic guest. You dropped some really big nuggets, and I look forward to hopefully connecting with you again and seeing you in person at the next big event.
Yeah, you just send me an invitation to wherever you're going to be, and if I can make it, I'll do it.
Sounds good. All right. Guys, thanks for tuning in to CEO Secrets. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're watching on iTunes, or if you're on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tune in next time. Bye, everybody.